What's up? I'm gonna start answering questions or having a general topic, so it's not me just rambling, and it's really a focus of the conversation. And today's focus is how many fights should you have before turning pro? This one's pretty popular, I feel like, or at least it's a really good question, but because everyone does it at different times. Everyone does it when they're ready. Everyone does it too. Some people do it too early. Some people do it too late. I feel like most people do it too early though. When should you turn pro, or how many fights should you have before turning pro? I'll put this up. So, based on my experience, I've been boxing for 19 years now. It's gonna be 20 this year. So you pretty much say 20 years. You want to get in as many fights as possible before turning pro. As many as possible. As many as humanly possible before turning pro. I mean, with the exception that, like, I don't know, freaking Floyd Mayweather or Oscar De La Hoya is knocking on your door. Hey, I want to sign you. I want to give you all this money. You know, for most of us, that's not gonna be the case. So that's not something we have to worry about. Obviously, if Oscar or Floyd or Matchroom or one of these big companies is at your doorstep trying to sign you, obviously, yeah, go for it. But until then, most of us aren't going to be in that situation. So that's why I say before turning pro and before trying to build a name up, before trying to develop an undefeated record or a good record, a winning record even, you need as many fights as possible before turning pro. And here's why. So I personally had about 150 fights before turning pro, and I needed them because I was just not naturally gifted at all. Like I was just not naturally fast, not naturally strong, not naturally good with timing, not naturally with anything really. So for me, I needed those 150 fights. I'm not saying you need 150 fights, but it'd be nice, if you could have the luxury of and the financial opportunity to travel and to get these fights and compete all the time. So let's say 10 fights a year, right? 10 fights a year for 10 years, that would be 100. So that means you'd have to be boxing for 10 years before turning pro. Most people don't have that luxury. Okay, what if you have? It's a little extreme. 20 fights a year. Yeah, most people aren't gonna be having 20 fights a year unless like they're going to every national tournament. But the biggest thing here is, well, when are you starting, and how old are you, and when do you want to turn pro? So these questions are important, obviously, but in whatever situation you're in, it doesn't matter. So I don't know. Let's say I'm 12 to 15 years old. I have like at least another like say I'm 12, another 10 years, so I could get those 100 fights for sure. Maybe some years you do 15 fights a year, and you catch up that way. But from 12 to you turn pro at 22, you'd be well seasoned. You'd have 100 fights, probably more than 100 fights at 10 fights a year. You might get more than 10 a year, but 10's a good amount. Um, but again, not everybody has that luxury. So now let's say you're starting boxing at 18. You don't really have 10 years to work with no more. Now you have like, let's say you're also turning pro at 22 and you're 18, so you have 4 years. So in 4 years, um, you probably squeeze in at least 40 to 50 fights. Yeah, at least that's doable. That's 10 fights a year. Some fights more, some years more, some years you'd have to do like 12 fights. Um, yeah, 12 times 4. Uh, It'd be hard. It'd be hard. I'm not gonna lie to you. It'd be hard. But you could at least get 40 fights. Uh, if everything goes 40 fights. Honestly, to answer the question in a nutshell, you want to get as many fights as possible, as humanly possible for you and your situation before turning pro. Because once you turn pro, like I said, the score resets and no one really cares or remembers what you did. I mean, or what your record was as an amateur. They're gonna remember you being a good or bad amateur, sure, but they're not gonna really like care about your record as an amateur because guess what? When you turn pro, the score resets. So the reason, but why do we need all these fights though? So speed is good, power is good, timing is good, but experience is king. Experience above all is king. Um, I'm not the fastest. I'm not the strongest. I'm not any of these things, but I do have a shit ton of experience. I fought a lot of great fighters. I've shared the ring with Olympians, current world champions. Like I've done it all. The whole, especially in the Olympic Training Center when I was fighting the number one guy, not fighting, but sparring against the number one guys in multiple countries. That experience right there is priceless. Like you're just not. It's like, so imagine trying to learn how to box while you're boxing. Try to learn on the job is crazy. Trying to learn how to box, try to learn on the job as a professional fighter is crazy. Don't do it. A lot of people try to do that. A lot of people rush because they just want to do it right away, or I don't know what it is. But me personally, I never wanted to rush something like this because you gotta keep in mind you get one career, and you want to have a very successful career. You want to win most of your fights, if not all of them. And what's gonna happen when you face an opponent that you're not used to fighting? What's gonna happen? Let's say your weakness is tall fighters, or your weakness is short fighters, or your weakness is awkward fighters, or really fast fighters, or the list goes on. You're not gonna really understand what your weakness is until you've been in there so many times. Okay, I have trouble with these kind of guys. I have trouble against this kind of style. You don't learn that until you go through it. And I can't tell you what you're gonna have trouble with. Nobody can tell you. You have to go through it. You have to fight these people, fight these fighters, and experience firsthand and make the mistakes. You have to go in there and make the mistakes, because once you make the mistakes, you learn from them and you become better as a fighter and as a person. But most importantly, your IQ goes up. Every fight that you have, your IQ goes up. Your boxing IQ, that is, not your normal IQ. Who knows? Maybe that too. But every fight that you go through, you level up. Think of every fight that you go through as like you're gaining more season. I'm sure a lot of you play Call of Duty. When you can get a kill, your XP goes up, right? So well, I mean, it goes from left to right, or up. It would be that way, but whatever. Your XP goes up, and your ranking goes up as you get more kills in Call of Duty. Same thing with boxing. As you get more fights in boxing, your IQ goes up and your experience goes up, and you become a better fighter because you learn from your mistakes. Assuming you're taking the time to review your fights and kind of going over what worked and what didn't. Me personally, ever since a young kid, after every fight as an amateur, we would talk about, okay, what we did right, what we did wrong. We would review, and that knowledge was priceless because guess what? I was less likely to make the same mistake again. Trying to do that as a professional is like mission impossible because it's already dangerous as hell. You're already wearing no headgear. You have 8-ounce gloves. Like that's somewhere where you want to be ready to go, and that's it. You don't want to be learning nothing. You want to be ready to go, because if you're not ready to go, guess what? Someone's gonna knock you out. Someone's gonna hurt you. You're gonna get hurt real bad. You're gonna make mistakes that you never even knew were possible. So before turning pro, you wanna first make sure you're ready. Well, that's not true. You're never gonna really feel ready. At least in my experience, like you're never gonna really feel ready, because once you have that pro debut, you're gonna be like, you're gonna be nervous as shit. I promise you, it's gonna be like your first fight all over. I had 150 fights as an amateur, My pro debut, I was nervous as hell. It's like I've never been in before. Because technically I haven't. I mean, I've been here literally, yeah, I've had many, many fights. But as a professional with no headgear, the no headgear thing is crazy. I was lucky and fortunate enough to fight as